All right, stay classy, Golden Eagles. This is going to be lesson 4 of the week, the final lesson of the week. I know that I've asked you to do quite a few pages, but do remember it's a very limited amount of problems. I think in all of the pages combined, I think there is definitely less than 50 problems, and most of them are simple adding. So you guys can certainly do that. Show some grit and get it through. Okay, get through it. So before we continue, before we start, I want to talk about the learning target. So this is all about additive angles and shapes. Additive meaning adding up. So our learning target today is we're going to be able to separate angles to determine an angle's measure in a shape. Now, in our previous lessons when we talked about triangles, I dropped the hint for you guys that no matter what triangle in the known world, no matter what, as long as there are no empty spaces, meaning like there's no like break in the lines or anything like that, as long as a triangle has 3 points and no breaks in the line, they always equal 180 degrees. The measure of all 3 angles every single time is going to equal 180 degrees. So since we know that, we can go ahead and do just like we practiced in the yesterday's activities, where we can add up our 2 knowns and subtract it from our large number, which is the whole, and we'll find our missing value of x. So let's do that. Let's add up our 2 knowns. 136 plus 18. 8 plus 6 is 14. Carry the 1. 4 plus 3 plus 1, well, I like to go 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 3 is 5. And then we bring down the 1 to join its friends. So the adding up of 136 plus 18 gives us 154. Now, that is not the answer here, because 154 plus 136 is already going to be over 180. Okay, we cannot do that. But what that tells us is that's the combined total of this part, and if we subtract this from this, we're going to get the remainder, which is x. So let's do that. Okay, don't worry about what's below. We'll get to that in a second. So if I take my 180 degrees and I subtract 154, okay, I have to borrow from I'll do it this way so you don't get distracted. I have to borrow from the 8 to help out my 0. 8 turns to a 7, 0 turns to a 10. 4 from 10 is 6. 5 from 7 is 2, and 1 from 1 is 0. So my x, my missing point, is 26 degrees. Now, if you add it up, 18 plus 136 plus 26, you will get 180 degrees. Now, that's for a 3-sided figure, a triangle. Now, let's look at a quadrilateral, which is a fancy word for a 4-sided figure. I did my best to draw a trapezoid. It didn't come out perfect, but it comes out pretty decent. And if you remember again, back to last week's when we were working on 4-sided figures or quadrilaterals, every quadrilateral, if you measure inside of it, it's going to equal 360 degrees. All right? So, in this situation, all you have to do, there's one additional step. Since we have 3 sides up here, there's 4 here. We just have one additional step. We need to add up the 3 known totals, subtract that total that we get from adding 75, 75, and 105, and subtract it from 360, and we will get the x remaining, okay? So let's go ahead and work on that. So if we do 75, I'm going to break this up into spots, plus 75, 5 plus 5 is 10, carry a 1. 7 times 2, or 7 plus 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15, so we have 150. So that takes care of this side, and now I have my remaining bit, which is 105. So let's add that up. Remember, it can't be over 360 degrees, otherwise there's something wrong with our shape. So if we add 105 to 150, this is pretty straightforward. 5 and 0 is 5. Again, 5 and 0 is 5. And then we have 1 plus 1 is 2. So this total of 75, 75, and 105 is 215. Now I'm going to move it up. I'm going to go over here. And then if we subtract our 360, if we subtract our added total of 225 from our 360, which if you measure the angle of every square or every four-sided figure in the world, as long as it doesn't have breaks, it'll always add up to 360. If we subtract our 225, we'll get our missing remainder of x. So we can't go 5 from 0, so we got to borrow. Turn that 6 to a 5, 0 to a 10. 5 from 10 is 5. Oh, I wrote the wrong number down. My mistake. I see it. I was like, oh, the math is not working. So we have to do, good thing I caught myself, 360 minus 255. Again, I was right on that part. Borrow, turn it to a 5, turn it to a 10. 5 minus 10 is 5. Now we have 5 from 5. I have 5 cookies and I ate them and I am happy, but I also have no cookies left. And then we have 2 from 3, which is 1. So our x equals 105 degrees. Okay? Now, some of you may be looking at this shape and going, oh, I see the pattern. It was 75 on this side and 75 on this side. Oh, and it's 105 here and x is 105. Now, that may not always be the case for a four-sided figure. If the lines are perfectly straight, yes, it will always be the case. But if lines are slightly angled or one side's maybe got a smaller side than the other, then that may not be the case. So don't always just assume the opposite side, 105 to 105 or 75 to 75, is going to be the case. Do the math, go through this process. If you have any questions, leave a question in the comments below this post. Email your teacher. Make sure you ask questions, guys. You're doing all really well. As always, stay classy, Golden Eagles.